It is 2 a.m. on Interstate 70.
Right in the dead of night.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a crew out there, maybe 20 people, working under the, that really harsh artificial glare of portable light towers.
Yep, the ones that cast those massive shadows everywhere.
Right. And they're tying rebar, pouring concrete, operating heavy machinery. And less than 10 feet away from where they are standing, civilian vehicles are just flying past at 75 miles an hour.
It's terrifying when you actually stand out there.
It really is, because separating your crew from a completely distracted, exhausted driver is, well, it's nothing but a white line painted on the asphalt and a row of orange plastic barrels.
Yeah.
When you really stop and visualize that reality, the margin for error isn't just thin. I mean, it's practically non-existent. I'm Justine, and welcome to a very special deep dive on the Scaling Legends podcast.
Thanks for having me, Justine. I'm Nicole.
And today we are talking directly to you, the construction business owners, the contractors, the project managers, the people who are quite literally out there building our infrastructure.
And we are really glad you're here with us for this one because, honestly, the stakes of what we're unpacking today go far, far beyond operational efficiency or supply chain bottlenecks.
They really do, Nicole. I mean, usually you and I sit here and analyze ways to, optimize your bidding strategy or manage your overhead.
Right, the business side of things.
Exactly. But today, we need to set a very serious tone. Because before we are business operators, we are human beings. And we need to talk about a human being named Jordan Thomas.
Yeah. Jordan was just 25 years old. He worked for Kokosing Construction, which, as a lot of you listening probably know, is one of the most respected heavy highway contractors in Ohio.
Absolutely.
He was out there working on the $1.4 billion downtown ramp-up project on I-70 in Columbus.
And this was recently. It was February 28th, 2026, 2 o'clock in the morning, like we were just describing.
Yep.
Jordan was just doing his job. And at 2 in the morning, someone in a vehicle breached that zone, hit him, and Nicole, they didn't even hit the brakes. They just drove away into the night.
Just kept going.
And Jordan died.
It's just devastating. And the suspect who drove that vehicle is, they're still at large right now.
Unbelievable.
And in just a massive statement of support for their people, Kokosing Construction has actually offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
Wow.
And PFM Fleet Management stepped up too. They added another $10,000 to that. So there is a $110,000 reward sitting there right now, just trying to bring some measure of justice to this family.
And that's exactly why we're doing this today. Jordan is not a data point. He is a young man who should have gone home after his shift. But in the context of our industry, his tragedy it's this glaring, flashing warning light that we simply cannot ignore anymore.
No, we really can't.
He's a heartbreaking reminder of the ultimate stakes of this business. So our mission today, our core objective for this entire deep dive, is to honor Jordan by giving you, the contractor listening right now, the exact blueprint to protect your crews.
Because things have to change.
They do. There is a massive federal deadline looming, and the way we handle highway work zones is about to undergo a seismic shift.
It has to shift, Justine, because what we are dealing with right now is a terrifying macro reality. It's, I call it an invisible epidemic on our highways.
Invisible because people just drive right past it.
Exactly. I mean, the general public just drives through a work zone and complains about the delay, traffic is so backed up. They don't see the sheer volume of the carnage that you deal with on a regular basis.
Right. So let's talk about the mechanics of this epidemic, because you would think logically with heavier equipment, brighter lights, all these better communication protocols we have now, the trend line for work zone accidents would be dropping.
You really would think so. But the reality is moving in the exact opposite direction. According to Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, 898 people were killed in work zones in 2023.
Wait, almost 900 people?
Yes. That is a 50% increase over the last decade.
A 50% increase. That's staggering.
It really is. And just to put the macro impact into perspective for the business owners listening, that carries a $38.9 billion annual economic cost. But of course, the human cost, as we see with Jordan, is what truly guts a company.
Yeah, that 50% increase just blows my mind. And there is a tragic paradox driving that number, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Because State Department of Transportation, the DOTs that you guys bid against, they are under immense political pressure to minimize daytime traffic disruptions.
Nobody wants a traffic jam at noon.
Exactly. Nobody wants the political blowback of shutting down 3 lanes of a major interstate on a Tuesday afternoon. So what do? They mandate that you, the contractor, push all your heavy work to the night shifts.
And night work fundamentally changes the risk profile of a project. I mean, Jordan was killed at 2:00 a.m.
Let's talk about the biological and environmental reality of 2:00 a.m. on a highway, because you are mixing incredibly low visibility with a workforce that is fighting their own circadian rhythms.
People are just naturally exhausted at that hour.
Right. And then on the other side of the plastic cones, you have drivers who are fatigued, potentially impaired, and dealing with the #1 cause of crashes right now.
Cognitive distraction.
Yes, they are looking at their phones, not the road. It's like we are asking these workers to play Frogger in the dark.
That's a great way to put it. Which actually brings up a fascinating, albeit terrifying, psychological mechanism called target fixation.
Target fixation, like in aviation.
Exactly like that. We see this a lot in the safety analysis. When a driver is exhausted or mildly impaired or distracted by their phone, their brain subconsciously steers the vehicle toward whatever holds their visual attention.
Oh, wow. So the lights are actually drawing them in.
Yes. At 2 a.m, a massive array of flashing amber lights and floodlights is highly stimulating in an otherwise dark environment. Drivers actually drift into the work zone because their eyes lock onto the lights. They literally steer where they stare.
That makes entirely too much sense. It explains why a vehicle just suddenly leaves a perfectly clear lane and barrels straight into an excavator.
Exactly. And that leads to a reality about this epidemic that surprises a lot of people. When a vehicle breaches a work zone due to, target fixation or distraction, the construction workers are absolutely the most physically vulnerable.
Obviously, they're just standing there.
Right. But the vast majority of those 898 fatalities are actually the motorists themselves.
Oh, sure, because the physics are totally unforgiving. I mean, if a civilian in a 2-ton sedan doing 70 miles an hour swerves into a stationary dump truck or a piece of heavy earth-moving equipment,
the car loses every time.
The kinetic energy transfer is just catastrophic for the people inside that car.
Exactly. So when we talk about overhauling work zone security, the mandate isn't just about protecting your employees. You are essentially building a fortress to protect the public from their own worst driving habits.
Yeah, that's a powerful way to frame it.
Yeah.
Well, the government has definitely noticed the blood on the highway, and the federal hammer is officially dropping. Let's transition into the regulatory response, because the landscape for bidding and operating is shifting under your feet right now.
It really is. The Federal Highway Administration, the FHWA, has issued comprehensive new work zone safety rules, and they have drawn a hard line in the sand, Justine. The absolute deadline for compliance is December 31st, 2026.
December 31st, 2026. Listeners, if you are an owner or an estimator, you need to write that on your whiteboard today. But Nicole, let's break down the actual scope of this. What does this mean for the mid-sized contractor who is putting together a bid tomorrow morning? How wide a net does this cast?
Oh, the net covers practically everything that matters. These rules apply to all federally funded highway projects. We are talking about a $209 billion pool of federal highway spending.
So basically, if you touch federal money, you fall under these rules.
Period. And the single biggest mandate in this new regulation is the enforcement of a concept called positive protection.
Okay, we need to be very clear about what positive protection actually means in a legal and physical sense, because it's kind of a sterile term. But in the field, positive protection means deploying physical physics, not visual suggestions.
Yeah.
An orange barrel with a reflective stripe is just a visual suggestion. A distracted driver can drift right through it and barely feel a bump before they hit your crew.
And we've seen that happen far too many times.
Right. Positive protection means concrete barrier. It means a physical mass that will violently redirect a 2-ton vehicle away from the space where your team is working.
That is the core shift. The era of just putting out a few signs and some plastic barrels on a high-speed project is officially over. But here is the massive business threat for everyone listening right now.
Okay, what is it?
Based on Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report, individual state DOTs are moving at completely different paces to implement these federal standards into their procurement processes.
Oh man, which creates an absolute regulatory minefield for contractors who operate across state lines.
Precisely. You might have Ohio enforcing immediate rollout requirements for their bidding pre-qualifications, while maybe Texas or California stagger their mandates differently, even though that ultimate federal deadline of December 2026 is universal.
So you have to track local rules while aiming for the federal target.
Exactly. Tracking these specific state DOT requirements and knowing your exact compliance status is critical. Because if your safety plan doesn't reflect these new mandates, you don't just get a warning from the state. Non-compliance means you fail the pre-qualification stage entirely. You simply cannot bid. You will be locked out of a $209 billion market.
You literally won't be allowed to compete. I mean, your pipeline dries up overnight. Okay, so the terrifying reality on the road is clear, and the regulatory hammer is coming down. Let's get into the actionable blueprint.
Get to it.
What must the contractors listening buy, change, and implement today? We've distilled the upcoming mandates into a 7-point action plan. So let's start with the physical hardware. Nicole, what's step 1?
Well, the first step is embracing what we just discussed. Positive protection as the non-negotiable baseline. Concrete barriers, movable barrier systems, and truck-mounted attenuators. Right, TMAs. Those massive, energy-absorbing crash cushions attached to the back of heavy trucks. These must be placed between your workers and live traffic on high-speed work zones. They are no longer a nice-to-have or an optional line item in your bid.
But let's be realistic about physical barriers for a second. A semi-truck fully loaded with freight doing 70 miles an hour can still breach a temporary concrete wall. I mean, the kinetic energy is just too massive.
It happens. The wall just shatters or gets pushed.
Exactly. So if the physical barrier fails, what is the technological fail-safe to get your workers out of the way? That brings us to step 2. Intrusion detection.
And this is where work zone technology is advancing so rapidly. Intrusion alarms are systems that use specialized radar or infrared beams to monitor the perimeter of your work zone.
Like an invisible fence.
Yes. When a vehicle breaches that perimeter like the split second someone drips out of their lane and breaks the invisible line, the system triggers. We're talking massive auditory and visual alarms. Blaring sirens, strobes, and the really good systems even trigger wearable haptic buzzers on the workers' safety vests.
Oh, that's smart, because it's so loud out there anyway.
Exactly. It gives your crew a critical 2 or 3 seconds of cognitive warning to just drop their tools and dive behind a hard barrier.
Okay, but I have to push back here on behalf of the business owners listening, because I know exactly what they're thinking right now. The CapEx on this tech is steep.
It is an investment, yes.
These intrusion detection systems run anywhere from, $2,000 to $10,000 per setup? If you are a contractor with 15 active highway sites, you just mentally did the math and flinched. That is a massive capital expenditure to swallow when margins are already incredibly tight.
I completely understand the sticker shock, Justine.
Yeah.
I do. But we have to look at the brutal math of long-term liability here. Let's weigh that $10,000 system against the alternative. An OSHA citation for inadequate work zone protection can easily exceed $150,000 per violation.
And that is just the regulatory fine. That doesn't factor in the multi-million-dollar civil lawsuits or the sheer emotional devastation of a catastrophic accident. When you weigh a $10,000 tech investment against a $150,000 OSHA fine, or frankly against the life of a 25-year-old worker, that $10,000 is incredibly cheap insurance.
Yeah, that reframes it perfectly. I mean, it's literally an investment in the survival of your balance sheet and your people. Let's move to the third step in the hardware checklist, high-vis PPE upgrades. Because the basic neon vest just isn't cutting it anymore.
It really isn't. The baseline for personal protective equipment has officially shifted. ANSI Class 2 vests are out for these high-risk environments. ANSI Class 3 is now the absolute minimum for all workers inside the work zone.
And we need to explain the mechanism behind why Class 3 is so vital, especially at night. It really comes down to a physiological concept called biomotion.
Yeah, that biomotion is key here.
Because a Class 2 vest just covers the torso, right? So to a driver flying down the highway at 2 a.m., a reflective square torso looks exactly like a static reflective barrel. It doesn't immediately register as a human being. But Class 3 gear has retroreflective striping down the arms and joints.
Exactly. The human brain is hardwired to instantly recognize the movement of joints. When a driver's headlights hit the reflective striping on an elbow or a knee that is moving dynamically, their brain subconsciously registers human walking in a fraction of a second.
It's instinctual.
It is. That biomotion recognition is what actually makes them hit the brakes, rather than just drifting closer to see what the shape is.
Exactly. All right, so that covers the physical gear, right? Positive protection barriers, radar intrusion alarms, and Class 3 biomotion PPE. But let's transition to the software and the operational culture. Because you can buy all the cutting-edge gear in the world, but if your operational protocols are broken, people still get hurt. So step 4 is overhauling your internal traffic control plans, or TCPs.
Yes. Traffic control plans are the literal blueprints for how vehicles navigate your work zone safely. You know, where the tapers start, where the signs go, how the lanes shift. But what we see way too often in this industry is a dangerous habit I call dusty binder syndrome.
Dusty binder syndrome is a massive liability. I've seen this. It's when a project manager just opens a 3-ring binder, pulls a generic traffic control plan from some bridge project they did 3 years ago, changes the dates, and submits it for a brand new highway job.
Yep. Pure copy and paste.
It is purely an exercise in checking a bureaucratic box.
Yeah.
But running a modern night shift on a generic, outdated TCP is like using an expired map to navigate a minefield. The new regulations demand that your TCPs are highly project-specific and crucially night-specific. You cannot use a daytime traffic flow plan for a 2.0 a.m. shift.
No, you can't.
The visibility dynamics and the driver behaviors are entirely different.
Which naturally brings us to step 5, speed management. You simply cannot passively accept the existing speed limit when you set up a high-risk zone. You need to aggressively request reduced speed zones from the DOT for the duration of the project.
Right.
And you need to deploy speed feedback signs, those digital trailers that flash a driver's current speed back at them. The psychological data proves those signs actually shame drivers into slowing down.
And here is a critical operational tip regarding those DOT speed reduction requests. Listen closely to this one. Document every single interaction.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you ask the state engineer to lower the speed limit from 65 to 45 for your night workers, and they say no because their modeling prioritizes traffic flow over your zone, which happens all the time.
All the time.
You must get that denial in writing. Keep the emails, keep the meeting minutes, because heaven forbid a crash happens, you need a bulletproof paper trail showing you actively tried to mitigate the speed risk. That is how you cover your corporate liability when the lawyers show up.
That is critical defensive management. And step 6 ties right into that culture of defense, worker training. And Justine, this represents a massive paradigm shift in the industry. Historically, maybe just the flaggers or the dedicated safety officers got specialized traffic control training.
Right, the guys actually holding the stop signs.
Exactly. But the new standard demands that every single field worker who steps foot in that zone needs formal training from ATSA, the American Traffic Safety Services Association, or the National Highway Institute.
Well, because everyone needs that ingrained situational awareness. I mean, if a distracted driver breaches the perimeter, the laborer tying rebar needs to know exactly what the evacuation protocol is and where the blind spots of the heavy equipment are, just as well as the flagger does.
Exactly.
You cannot have untrained personnel in a live fire zone. It's just asking for a tragedy.
Which leads us to the final step in our blueprint, step 7, night work protocols.
Night work is just a beast of its own because it fights human biology. You are dealing with circadian rhythm drops, where cognitive function absolutely plummets at 3 in the morning. Your protocols have to acknowledge that biological reality.
They do. You need to enforce mandatory buddy systems. Nobody walks out near a live lane alone, ever. You need vastly enhanced balloon lighting setups that illuminate the work area without casting harsh, blinding glare into the eyes of oncoming traffic.
Right, because blinding the drivers is the last thing you want to do.
Exactly. You need active worker tracking systems so your site superintendent knows exactly who is in the danger zone at any given moment. And you have to implement mandatory rest periods to fight that 3.0 a.m. cognitive decline we were just talking about.
And if we want to tie all of this operational overhaul back to the absolute survival of your company, we really have to look at the insurance markets.
Yes. As noted in Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, tracking your safety training, your equipment certifications, and your compliance doesn't just keep OSHA happy. It directly and aggressively impacts your bottom line through your insurance multipliers.
Walk us through the financial mechanics of that, Nicole. How does a failure in these 7 steps ripple through a contractor's balance sheet?
It all comes down to your EMR, your experience modification rate. This is the historical multiplier that insurance companies use to calculate your workers' compensation premiums. A single work zone fatality or even just a severe injury cluster can cause your EMR to spike by 20 to 40%.
40%.
Yes. And that penalty sits on your record for 3 years.
Think about the math on that, folks. If your labor burden suddenly jumps at 40% because your insurance premiums skyrocket, your fixed overhead is just crushed. You go to bid on a new state project. and you find yourself losing bids by a 1 or 2% margin across the board.
Every time.
You literally cannot compete on price anymore because you are subsidizing your own poor safety record. A bad EMR will bleed a construction company dry faster than a bad supply chain ever could.
It absolutely will. And beyond the brutal reality of the insurance crush, there is the recruitment and retention reality. I mean, field workers talk.
Oh, they definitely talk.
The local labor market knows exactly which companies treat their people as disposable labor and which ones invest heavily in their protection. Good, experienced workers will simply walk away from companies that do not protect them. A fatality on your site devastates team morale, it tanks your retention rates, and it destroys your reputation in the labor market. You just won't be able to hire the talent you need to execute the work you win.
You know, talking about reputation and corporate responsibility brings us right back to where we started this deep dive today. Kokosing Construction is putting up $100,000 of their own corporate capital to find the person who took Jordan Thomas's life. That is a profound, incredibly heavy statement. That is exactly what corporate leadership looks like in the tragic aftermath of the absolute worst-case scenario. They are putting their money and their weight behind their people.
They are. It's highly commendable, and it shows a deep, fundamental respect for their team and for Jordan's family.
But I want to leave everyone listening with this final provocative thought. It is incredible leadership to support a family in the aftermath of a tragedy. But true leadership for you, the person running a crew right now, means aggressively implementing these 7 steps so you never have to offer a reward in the first place.
Exactly. Prevent it before it happens.
Don't wait for the December 2026 federal deadline to force your hand. Open your safety plan this week. Look at your TCPs. Look at your barrier protocols. If your plan hasn't been completely overhauled in the last 6 months, tear it apart and rebuild it. Do it for the survival of your business. Do it in memory of Jordan. And most importantly, do it so your people actually get to go home to their families tomorrow morning.
If you know a contractor who is bidding on highway projects or managing night work, send them this episode. It could save a life and protect their business.
Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. And to scale your operations safely, visit smartbusinessautomator.com. What are you willing to change today so that your team isn't a headline tomorrow?